Hello from Washington, I'm Simon Marks, welcoming you to the Year Ahead 2017, our special annual program in which we take a look at some of the stories we think we'll be covering in the United States and in Europe for Channel NewsAsia over the next 12 months. And this year it is even harder than usual to gaze into our collective crystal ball, because the dominant news story of 2016 in the United States had an ending that very few people managed to foresee. November the 8th, 2016 will go down as a moment in history that ushered in a new historic era in the United States. Donald Trump's unexpected victory in the presidential election,
sorry to keep you waiting, complicated business, complicated,
has created a stunning degree of uncertainty in Washington and around the world. Will he seek to implement the right-wing, isolationist, protectionist, often bigoted pledges that he made on the campaign trail?
And who's going to pay for the wall? 100%.
Or will the more inclusive, calmer rhetoric of election night come to be the hallmark of his administration?
I say it is time for us to come together as one united people.
With Donald Trump's inauguration scheduled for high noon on January the 20th, work is underway to build the reviewing stands for the inaugural parade along Pennsylvania Avenue. Harder to see the work going on behind the scenes to put together a government that Mr. Trump almost certainly never expected to lead. That's been taking place at Trump Tower in New York, its lobby home to a constant series of high-level comings and goings and ongoing speculation about whether the skyscraper's high walls hide a degree of chaos and disarray.
Today I would like to provide the American people with an update on the White House transition and our policy plans for the first 100 days.
In videos filmed by and released by the Trump campaign, the president-elect has insisted everything is going smoothly. And after an election campaign in which voters across the spectrum expressed hostility towards President Obama's proposed Trans-Pacific Partnership, Mr. Trump has promised that the planned free trade deal with Asia will be killed minutes after he takes power.
I am going to issue our notification of intent to withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a potential disaster for our country. Instead, we will negotiate fair bilateral trade deals that bring jobs and industry back onto American shores.
Killing the TPP is easy. It can be done at the stroke of a presidential pen. Tougher will be negotiating any of those bilateral trade deals. Each one could take years. Also hard, restoring confidence among governments across the Asia-Pacific region, who worry America isn't the reliable ally they'd thought.
Well, I think that the United States scrapping of TPP obviously is going to create a vacuum.
Marcus Noland is Executive Vice President of the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Its website is replete with research arguing the benefits of TPP outweigh any of the costs.
I think perhaps a couple of years out, there may be some initiative within the Trump administration to revisit this issue as the strategic implications of it become more clear. And there are ways of essentially reviving TPP by adding to it, for example, adding stronger provisions on currency manipulation. So I think that TPP is dead, but it may be possible to revive it like a phoenix or like Lazarus a couple of years down the road.
But that would require Donald Trump to be pragmatic.
Whoa, look at that!
Not dogmatic, as he often appeared during the campaign. He will be able to count on Republican majorities in both houses of Congress, meaning that in theory he's got at least 2 years before the midterm elections to advance his agenda. He could, for example, entirely scrap the Iran nuclear deal, walk away from the climate change accords that President Obama only ratified in September, close America's borders to Muslims, as he vowed he would do during the campaign, and seek support for that wall along the border with Mexico that he says will keep criminals and rapists out of the USA.
Well, I just had the opportunity to have an excellent conversation with President-elect Trump.
He does, in other words, have the potential to destroy the central pillars of President Obama's legacy. But some observers here wonder just how far he will go. On US policy towards Cuba, for example, visited by President Obama in March 2016, will the Republicans really seek to renew America's standoff with the communist island? At least one longtime analyst of US policy towards Savannah thinks probably not.
Cuba has always had a strange kind of place with the U.S. Congress. I think the vast majority of members for many years have not been particularly concerned with Cuba one way or the other and would have been perfectly happy to lift the embargo, and I think that that's still the case.
But other issues are less predictable. Donald Trump has had precious little to say about Barack Obama's foreign policy pivot to Asia. What stance will his foreign policy team take over China's regional aspirations? And what happens early in Donald Trump's administration if he's tested by North Korea?
I think the North Korea policy of President Trump is highly uncertain. As a candidate, he advocated everything from assassinating Kim Jong-un to sitting down with him to have a hamburger and Coke to sort out the nuclear issue. So between killing Kim Jong-un and having a hamburger with him, that leaves a lot of room for policy. And I think at this point, no one really knows what the Trump administration will do.
Perhaps because of that uncertainty, the Obama administration further tightened sanctions against Pyongyang in the dying weeks of 2016. It is hard to overstate the sense of shock that Donald Trump's election win brought to the streets of this city. Hard, too, to overstate the sense of anxiety among thousands of civil servants who will soon find themselves working for a new set of hands on the various tillers of government. 2017 will be a critical year that gives us an indication of what kind of America Donald Trump plans to lead. Coming up next, a look at some of the other stories we think we'll be covering in America over the next 12 months. My colleague Nick Harper in New York will have that when our special program continues.